Today's lesson is celebrating the lives of the dead, the Day of the Dead and Obon. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And, of course, as you know, a couple of days ago, it was Halloween, and that can be a lot of fun. It can be quite scary depending on the costume you choose to wear to a Halloween party. But that festival is over, but that does give us a chance to discuss similar holidays which celebrate the dead. And we're going to be talking about two of those days that celebrate the dead. We're going to be talking about the Day of the Dead in Mexico, Dia de los Muertos in Espanol. And we're also going to talk about Obon, which is a similar festival in Japan.
Right, so we're going to look at these two festivals and we're also going to sort of compare the two. And in my culture, the dead is usually thought of in sad terms. We become sad when we think of the dead because they have left us. But in some other cultures, the celebration is actually quite lively and people don't view death and the dead as something completely negative. So we're going to look more deeply into that.
Okay, so let's get going, everybody. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson, and we'll be right back.
Celebrating the lives of the dead, the Day of the Dead and Obon. In many cultures, death is associated with sadness, not celebration. But there are those that have embraced a different perspective, one in which the dead are commemorated with lively festivals instead of somber speeches. The Day of the Dead and Obon are two examples of such occasions.
大家好，我们来介绍第一部分中的动词 associate， 也可以发音为 associate。它的意思是相关联或是联想。例如 Chris has a lot of memories associated with his childhood. Chris 拥有很多跟童年相关的回忆。又或者说 Money and fame are often associated with happiness, but they don't always make people happy. 名利常与快乐联想在一起，但它们不一定能使人快乐。另外补充这个字的名词 association 一样也可以发成 association。ASSOCIATION Association 或是 Association， 它的意思是关联、联想，也可以是协会的意思。例如 One way to memorize new words is to learn the associations they have with other words. 背新单字的一种方法是学习它们与其他单字的关联。或者 The neighborhood association met last week to talk about the crime problem. 邻里协会上周开会，以讨论犯罪问题。再来，我们看到名词 perspective， 它的意思是思考问题的角度、观点或是想法。例如 From my perspective, changing our strategy now would be unwise. 从我的角度来看，现在改变我们的策略是很不明智的。又或者说 Living in another country for a time gives a person different perspectives on life. 在另一个国家生活一段时间，会让一个人对生活有不同的观点。下一个我们看到动词 commemorate， 指的是纪念或是缅怀。例如 This event commemorates the birth of a famous writer. 这个活动是为了纪念一位著名作家的诞生。又或者说 A sculpture in the park commemorates the people who lost their lives in the war. 那座公园里有一座雕塑，是为了缅怀在战争中丧生的人们。接下来我们看到形容词 somber， 它的意思是严肃的、忧郁的或是深色的。例如 The atmosphere of the funeral was somber and quiet. 葬礼的气氛严肃又安静。又或者说 The band was famous for their somber melodies. 该乐团以其忧郁的旋律而闻名。
So the first sentence of today's lesson says, in many cultures, death is associated with sadness, not celebration. So indeed, in many cultures and many countries, the idea of death is something sad. It's associated with sadness. People don't celebrate it. So here, the verb to associate with means to put together one thing with another, to connect two things in your mind. So I could say that roses are associated with the idea of love.
Or here in Taiwan, the color red is associated with fortune and happiness and good luck and things like that. And so here in lots of cultures, death is associated with sadness, not celebration. So, of course, when someone dies, it's a very sad occasion. People don't celebrate. But there are those that have embraced a different perspective. Okay, so there are people in the world that look at death in a different way. Of course, they're still sad when somebody passes away, but of course they can celebrate the dead once they've shed all those tears, and maybe being dead isn't such a bad thing after all. So here we have the verb to embrace, which does mean to give somebody a hug. The married couple embraced each other after the wedding. And in this particular case, though, to embrace means to accept something and celebrate it and don't try to push it away.
Right. You can embrace an idea. You can embrace a religion. You can embrace a principle. So these are different examples of how you can accept and believe in something that's abstract. So here, there are many people who embrace a different perspective. A perspective is a point of view of considering something. So I could say, for instance, that my sister and I have different perspectives on politics because we support different politicians and we have different ideas of how society should be. And in this case, it's saying that people have different perspectives on how the dead should be celebrated.
Yep, a point of view basically is what a perspective is. And of course, the dead are commemorated when you have that point of view or when you take that different perspective. If you commemorate something, you recognize something that had happened in the past, okay? You could say a birthday is a commemoration of your birth. Or your wedding anniversary commemorates your wedding, which took place many years ago. And so here it's the verb commemorate, which means to show respect for something that happened in the past or to show respect for a person or a thing.
Yes, so in the particular cultures that we're talking about, the dead are commemorated with lively festivals instead of somber speeches. So we are differentiating between people who see death as something sad and people who see death as something that could be lively. And the latter commemorate the dead with lively festivals, happy festivals, instead of somber speeches. So a speech is something that you say for an event, and a speech that's somber is a sad or very serious speech. There are no jokes, you don't laugh, you don't smile. It's just sad and serious.
Right, you would not give a comedy routine at a funeral unless it was appropriate, but in this particular case, you're not going to hear those somber speeches at these celebrations. The Day of the Dead and Obon are two examples of such occasions, which we're going to talk about today. So let's not delay any further. Let's move on now to the next paragraph. We'll listen to it first.
The Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos in Spanish, is observed primarily in Mexico and other Latin American countries. Taking place on the 1st and 2nd of November, the festival celebrates the lives of the deceased and features feasts, parades, music, and parties. Participants believe that during the festival, the spirits of the dead return to Earth to be reunited with their loved ones and take part in the celebrations.
第二部分我们看到单字 participant， 它是名词，指的是参加者或是参与者。例如 All participants in the game were given at least a small prize. 那个游戏的所有参加者都至少获得了一份小奖品。或是 A few of the participants in the contest were unhappy with the judge's decision. 一些比赛的参与者对评审们的结果不满意。另外补充这个字的动词 participate。P-A-R-T-I-C-I-P-A-T-E participate 它是参加或是参与的意思。例如 I'm looking for someone to participate in the talent show with me. 我正在找人跟我一起参加才艺表演。或者 More than 200 college students participated in the study. 有200多名大学生参与这个研究。
So first we're going to talk about the Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos in Spanish, is observed primarily in Mexico and other Latin American countries. So this holiday is celebrated or observed primarily in Mexico and other countries in Latin America or South America. To observe, of course, means to look at something, to see something, but it also means to follow a custom or to obey a law.
Indeed. So, of course, we could say the 4th of July is observed in the United States, or Thanksgiving is observed in the United States. And here, of course, Dia de los Muertos is observed primarily in Mexico and in other Latin American countries. And there's a Pixar movie came out a couple of years ago, that depicts Dia de los Muertos, and that will help you get an idea of what Dia de los Muertos is all about. And taking place on the 1st and 2nd of November, the festival celebrates the lives of the deceased and features feasts, parades, music, and parties. So the deceased refers to people who are dead. It's a friendly way, it's a respectful way to refer to someone who has passed away. The most crude form, the crudest form, is to say the dead person. And in this particular case, we use the word deceased, does refer to someone who has passed away. They are no longer living.
And participants believe that during the festival, the spirits of the dead return to earth to be reunited with their loved ones and take part in the celebrations. So the participants of this festival, or in this festival, are those who participate in it, those who take part in it. And those who take part in this festival have a special belief. They believe that the spirits of the dead will come back from the dead and they will be reunited with their family members, their good friends, and they will also take part in or participate in the celebration. So it's also an occasion for the dead to come back to life and have some fun and to enjoy themselves.
Absolutely. So again, a participant is someone who takes part in something, and of course the verb is to participate. I would like to participate in the party. May I come? May I join the party? May I take part in the party? And in this case, of course, we've got the dead returning to earth, and they're going to be reunited. They're going to be with their loved ones once again, and they will join in the celebrations. They will take part in these celebrations and these parties. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third part.
To prepare for the festival, people clean the graves of departed family members and decorate homes and graveyards with items that the deceased enjoyed while they were alive. Food, drink, flowers, and other offerings are placed near the grave, creating a kind of altar. The mood is cheerful, with people in brightly colored costumes and decorated skulls and skeletons featuring heavily. In these celebrations, people remember together the lives of those who have passed away.
最后第三部分，我们看到名词 grave， 指的是坟墓或是墓穴。例如 Every week, my grandfather puts flowers on my grandmother's grave. 我爷爷每个礼拜都在我奶奶的坟墓放上鲜花。又或者说 The king's body was buried in an underground grave for centuries. 那位国王的遗体被埋在地下坟墓里好几个世纪。
So in the last part, we saw why the Day of the Dead can be considered a happy event, because actually it's an occasion for the dead, the deceased, to come back to earth and to celebrate with their loved ones. Now, to prepare for the festival, people clean the graves of departed family members and decorate homes and graveyards with items that the deceased enjoyed while they were alive. So there is a particular method of preparing for this festival. First of all, people clean the graves. A grave is a place where a dead person is buried. So when a person dies, the family members will bring that person to a particular place and they will be placed in a grave and buried in the ground. That is the case for many cultures and religions. So I could say, for instance, that I visit my grandparents' grave every year at the cemetery.
And here we've got the word departed, which means people or things that have left. Sometimes we refer to dead people as the dearly departed. And of course, we clean the graves of those departed family members, and then we decorate our homes, and we also decorate cemeteries or graveyards, which is a plot of land where there are lots of graves together. We decorate them with items that the deceased enjoyed while they were alive, and those people will feel welcome if they see those things. Like, for example, if they were a musician, if you bring a guitar to the celebration, they will be very happy to see that guitar there.
Yes, and apart from bringing things that meant something to the deceased, food, drink, flowers, and other offerings are placed near the grave, creating a kind of altar. So there is something to eat, something to drink. There are also flowers and other offerings. So an offering or offerings are gifts that people offer or give to gods in general. That's what offering normally means. When you go to church, at a certain point during the service, somebody will come around to where you are sitting holding a basket or a bag, and then you drop money into that basket or that bag as a donation. So you're offering some money to help the poor or to help people in need. So that's called an offering, and that's a noun. But here, offerings are given to the dead person, and they are placed near the dead person's grave, and the grave becomes kind of something like an altar.
Indeed. And of course, here in Taiwan, if you go to temples, you'll see all sorts of offerings in the temple that people make to the deities there. And of course, you'll also have offerings at cemeteries during Tomb Sweeping Festival or at other times. So yes, indeed, offerings are placed near the grave, and that creates a kind of altar. An altar is sort of like a platform where things are placed in a church or in a temple. People might have altars in their homes, for example. Well, they may have a tudigong there inside the house there. That will be an altar where you can worship whatever deity you choose to worship. And the mood is cheerful with people in brightly colored costumes and decorated skulls and skeletons featuring heavily. So yes, the mood is cheerful. People are happy. They're not sad. It's not a somber atmosphere. People will be wearing brightly colored costumes, as only the Mexicans can. And also, it will be decorated with skulls and skeletons. They will feature heavily. In other words, they will be all over the place. You'll see them everywhere. Skull, of course, is the bone of your head, and the skeleton is all the bones of your body put together.
Yes, a skeleton can be said to be the structure of your body, the bone structure of your body. And in a lot of medical school classes, you'll see a skeleton hanging so that the students can memorize all of the bones in the body or visualize how the body is structured. So that's a skeleton. And in these celebrations, people remember together the lives of those who have passed away. So indeed, these are happy celebrations because people come together, especially the loved ones and the family members of the deceased, and all together they remember the lives of the people who have passed away, and they can think fondly of them.
Right, so they might get together and tell stories about the person while that person was alive. They will reminisce about that person. They will fondly remember that person. This can be a quite active celebration, and people will remember together the lives of those who have passed away. And we did talk about some terms for dying. You can die, you can pass away. And of course, a polite way to refer to someone who has died is deceased. The deceased is no longer with us.
You can also say the departed. Somebody has departed. Somebody has left the earth. You wouldn't say left the earth, but that's what departed means. They have passed away, they have deceased, or the deceased, which would be the dead, or the departed, which also means the dead. and the departed and the deceased have passed away or have died.
But we're still alive today, and of course, we're going to continue talking about this subject in our next program. But before we say goodbye today, we need to hear from Hanny once again.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第2部分提到，亡灵节主要是在墨西哥和其他拉丁美洲国家庆祝的节日。这个节日是在11月1号和2号举行。那文中是用 take place 来表达举行。我们就来整理一下表达举办、举行的相关用法。第一个，我们用 take place 可以表达举行、发生，像是活动、会议等等的举行啊，某某事件的发生。那用来指举办、举行的时候，这通常是指事先计划或安排好的事。那这个片语要用事物来当主词。举例来说， The parade will take place at 2 p.m. 游行将于下午2点举行。那第二个，我们可以用到 hold 或者是 host 这2个动词呢，都可以表达举行、举办，而常见的用法会有2种。第一种，我们是用人或主办单位来当主词，所以这个用法就会是人或主办单位加上 hold 或是 host 再加活动。例如，They're hosting a dinner party next Friday. 他们下周五要举办一场晚宴。那另外一种就是用事物或是活动来当主词，所以这个用法就是事物活动啊当主词之后加上 be held 或者是 be hosted。举例来说， Where will their wedding be held? 他们的婚礼将会在哪里举行呢？第三个，我们可以用到 occur 这个动词，它可以指事件没有规划或是非预期的发生，这时候语义会比 happen 还要正式。那么 occur 也可以表达事先安排好的活动的那种举行，那这时候用法会是以事物当主词。例如， The event is scheduled to occur in Seattle. 那个活动安排在西雅图举行。好，刚刚介绍了 take place 有举行的意思，这边也帮同学们补充2个有一点类似的用法来避免混淆哦。好，第一个是 take the place of somebody or something， 这是表达说取代什么什么，代替什么。那么其中的 place 是指地位，而这个用法呢就相当于 replace somebody 或是 replace something。好，我们就可以用 A takes the place of B 或者是 A takes B's place 去表达 A 取代了 B。 例如， Do you think that ebooks will eventually take the place of paper books? 你认为电子书最后会完全取代纸本书吗？好，那么第二个用法是 take one's place， 这是表达说准备好就定位，各就各位。像球员在球场上要就定位啊，或者是演员表演者在舞台上就定位，都可以用这个片语来表达。例如， The conductor bowed and took his place. 那位指挥家鞠躬并就定位。好，那以上是今天的重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Associate.When I think of summer, I always associate it with fun beach vacations. Embrace. He decided to embrace the changes in his life and accept the new opportunities. Perspective. Traveling to different countries has given Drew a broader perspective on global issues. Participant. As a participant in the study, Hope provided the researchers with valuable data. Grave.The family gathered around the grave to say their final goodbyes to their loved one. Offering. In the temple, the priest made an offering of fruits and flowers to the sun god. Skeleton. In biology class today, we examined a skeleton to study the structure of the bones.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.